Good evening, afternoon, night, morning, when you find a way to watch or listen to this podcast. It is me, Omar Roshan Bora, the Burger Popper, tuning in on a Monday night, Monday evening, actually. Nice hot Sunday, or nice hot Monday evening out here in El Paso. And I'm joined by a guest, an old guest of the podcast. When I mean old, I mean like we haven't talked, I think, since at least like 2022 when New Mexico State was looking for an extra game to I guess to make up for the San Jose State game in 2022. And so Charleston Southern had 10 games. So that's how I met Cade from SSN Charleston Southern. And we're talking about probably one of the hottest topics in the college football world from last week. The certified I guess food and football crossover fans will know about this one. But Cade, before we start, how's everything going?
It's going good, man. It's been a busy summer. I'm home with the kids this summer, kind of being the stay-at-home dad, and my wife is working. So it's been a new experience. I had the opportunity to take the summer off from the school district I work for. So it was the first opportunity I've ever had to just take some time off and spend with the kids. And it's good most days. Some days they're trying to fight me. Other days I'm trying to fight them. Other than that, we're good.
Geez, as a man without kids yet, then that's part of that is great to hear. The other part, not so much. So I'll take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, so just talking about Charleston, so I guess for context, we're talking about the Charleston Southern Citadel rivalry, which recently, call it gimmicky if you want. I mean, I think it's pretty cool, honestly. But the Charleston and the Citadel introduced the Low Country Boil Bowl, and the schools announced that at the end of the game, the winner will eat from the Low Country Boil Bowl. That's gonna be a tongue twister so quick. They're gonna eat from the Low Country Boil Bowl trophy. They're gonna eat a seafood boil out of it, which it's great. There's a certain group, there's a certain committee that enjoys that type of thing and will focus in on that event rather than the events on the field. But that's clear. But Kate, I want to know your thoughts on, I guess, what this means for the rivalry. I guess whether your thoughts on it, whether you enjoy this kind of gimmick, or and also too just the impact that this will have on the Charleston community, because I know that part of it, both schools are going to partner up for a service project in the city of Charleston.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see it. So Citadel and Charleston Southern have had I would say, kind of a difficult time since CSU started playing football in 1991. Um, we've played a lot of games at the Citadel. The Citadel has only come up to play at Charleston Southern 2 times out of the 13 times they've played. And a big reason for that, and I can understand, is the Citadel has the space. They're a much larger stadium. They're an older program. They go way back. I don't even know how old the Citadel is, but I know they're up there. Whereas Charleston Southern is still, a relatively young program in the grand scheme of things. When you look at some of these old programs, so Citadel has had long time. They've had a lot of success here and there over the last century, I guess. um, but CSU is a smaller private college. So our stadium capacity is 4,000, with standing room for 8,000 is how I've heard it. And the 2 times we've hosted the Citadel, we've had almost 8,000 people there. And so I can see, whereas we don't have the space to seat and accommodate, it's good for us to be able to bring in those kind of crowds because it does make a bigger case for expanding that stadium and having the space to accommodate. Like, you're not going to fill up every single game, but you do got to have the space when those times come. So over the last few years, CSU has been hosting some bigger name programs. We've hosted Furman, we've hosted North Carolina A&T. I think a few years ago, during the COVID year, I can't remember who the team was we were supposed to host, but it may have been Eastern Kentucky, but then the season got canceled. I think that may have been 2020, and that's a bigger program. And so they've been trying to bring in bigger name opponents because CSU fans do show up to the game, so we're consistently around that 3,500 to 4,000 capacity mark, and a lot of those people showing up are CSU fans. But it's hard to bring in, especially with the current state of our conference being the Big South OVC, it's hard to bring in fans all the way down to Charleston Southern from Lindenwood University. Or in this case, upcoming, like we host Southeast Missouri and we're also hosting Western Illinois. Those are two bigger programs with a bigger draw, but how well are those fans going to travel all the way down to Charleston, South Carolina, or excuse me, Ladson for the Citadel fans out there that don't like to give us, let us claim that. So Ladson University, Ladson South, whatever you want to call it. Um, how well are those fan bases going to travel to fill up the stadium? Because I can guarantee you every home game this year, CSU's home side will be packed. It always is. But then you look over to the smaller visitor side and there might be 100, 200 people there tops. Now, when the Citadel comes up and makes that 20-minute drive, it will be packed. Like I said, the two times we've hosted the Citadel, they filled up. They've brought people, and that's what I like. When we go down to play the Citadel, there's always anywhere from 8 to 11,000 people that show up at the game, according to the Citadel's attendance records that they keep. So we're not drawing 10, 11,000 people, but there are still Citadel fans that have a vested interest in coming up to CSU to watch the game. And so that's something that I think both schools have tried to. CSU obviously wants to get that home and home going, whereas the Citadel is kind of looking more logically as to the fact they have the seating and the space, so you might as well just hold the game down there. So I can see that because we do have the space, but on the other end of that, hosting these bigger games, it does help us make a better case for getting the attendance average up and for getting to the point where it's like, hey, it's time to add 1,000 seats to the stadium. It's time to add 1,500 or even just 500 seats to the stadium. There are some smaller programs out there making it work. Campbell University is not much bigger than CSU stadium wise. I think they seat 4,500. Gardner Webb might be at 5,000 or 6,000. But you do have, and Monmouth, that's another one. They're up in the CAA now. Their stadium capacity is 4,200. So we're right there with some smaller but good programs who are making it work. But, obviously we do need to get those bigger programs in that have fan bases that travel well, so that way we can, continue to make the case for a stadium expansion. So, I think, the appeal is there. So like I said, I'm excited to host them. This is just the third time we've hosted. Citadel has never won at CSU. They're 0-2 there. Both close games. They think back in 2014 was the first time they lost 18-20, and then we hosted them in the second round playoff game the next year, I think, and they lost 14-6. So, I'd like to think we got a bit of a home field advantage. I actually dove in a little bit. We are 88-70 at home, so I guess that could be considered enough for a home field advantage that, we don't necessarily make it easy on teams coming to our place. There's exceptions there, but we hosted Furman a couple of years ago. We lost 24-19. We hosted North Carolina A&T. We lost 27-20. And so, and then even most recently, Kennesaw State came to town and we won that one 13-10. So we definitely don't make it easy on some of these bigger teams coming in, but again, it is a smaller environment, and that might work too, to where you don't have fans coming from other teams coming to play, but you do have a lot of CSU fans that do show up and support their Bucks. And even though it's a smaller college, we're making it work.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's great to hear, honestly. I mean, the point you made about the stadium having standing room capacity to 8,000, that definitely makes what I wanted to talk about later, a moot point about moving the game to Joseph P. Riley Park. And I know you've been against, I know you when I first mentioned the idea in our DM, you were against the idea because it's more on the north side of Charleston. So I guess that's a moot point now, which is it's good to hear that the stadium has standing room capacity to 8,000. Something I want to ask as someone who is experienced with excuse me, geez, I'm congested, but with the military football experiences, is there sort of, I guess, a clamoring from the Charleston Southern community to have I don't even know what they call their cadets, brigade of cadets at Citadel, to have them come do a march on, have that military pomp and circumstance, or is that something that like really isn't talked about?
I'm not sure, honestly. CSU has a pretty strong military community. Um, they are usually routinely rated kind of one of the top military friendly programs in the state of South Carolina. Maybe not the top because you do have a program like the Citadel just down the road. Um, but as far as embracing, military tradition, I know there's a military friendly environment there. So, you know, I could see some sort of collaboration of the two coming there. And then as far as hosting the game at Joseph P. Riley Stadium, honestly, if they held it there, I think it'd be fine. It's it's a home game for both teams really because they're so close together. And last time we were at the Citadel, we picked up a win. So I told someone not too long ago that we'll beat you there or we'll beat you at our place. It doesn't really matter. So we can throw the Joseph Riley Stadium in there too if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge ballpark football fan. I know that FC, I mean, Holy Cross is pretty much the main school that does, or that did a yearly ballpark game. They won't have it this year, the EBW Classic. I went to the 2021 EBW Classic. It was a great experience, but definitely like not a yearly thing due. If you, I guess, if you have a ballpark game like maybe once every couple years, once every few years, the charm doesn't wear off as much. So I can see it happening one year. Excuse me, I would love to see it happen as a ballpark football purist, but I do recognize the merits having keeping the games on campus. Excuse me. The next thing I wanted to ask though about I guess the biggest thing of this all. So this isn't Charleston Southern and Citadel's first meeting, as you said before, but the big thing is the Low Country Boil Bowl trophy. Are you a fan of the gimmick? Do you think it takes away from the rivalry on the field? Or what are your overall thoughts on the whole Boil Bowl situation?
I mean, I'm a fan of it. I like that it seems like we're taking some steps to, just pump some fun into the games. They've overhauled a lot of stuff at CSU home games just to improve the game day experience. Over the last couple of years, they do a jump castle section. They bring in a ton of different food trucks. They usually cater Chick-fil-A, things like that. So since we've had a new AD there, it seems like he's taking the steps to just kind of pump some fun in the environment. And so to kind of dub the game with the Citadel and CSU, I'm hoping maybe it'll encourage more matchups. This is the first time that we'll have played them since 2021. I think the last time we played them before that was 2019. I don't know if they were scheduled to play 2020 or not. I can't remember with COVID and everything, but like the matchups have been spotty. So, like I said, they've played 13 times, which is 1991. So I'm hoping doing something like this will encourage more matchups because it will be an annual thing. Whether we win the first one this coming up or they win it. I appreciate that it looks like they're making the effort and they're having some fun with it. They also announced the barbecue bowl between CSU and Gardner Webb in November. That was one that was between Gardner Webb and Campbell, and then Campbell bolted for the CAA and kind of started all the Big South's problems with keeping us all together. That's no shade at Campbell. It was just kind of like a domino effect. Campbell left, North Carolina A&T, Hampton, Monmouth. Robert Morris is going, Bryant. So everyone has left, which I'm not too mad about. Monmouth, Bryant, and Robert Morris. They're not really Southern schools, so I'm fine with them leaving. But it's kind of been a domino effect of teams coming in and pumping up the Big South, and then just moving on to better conferences. And I'm happy for those teams too, because I think it's the Coastal Athletic now. It's a good conference to get in, and one that I would like to see maybe CSU get a part of in the future if we can, continue to improve our facilities, and especially with this kind of uneasy uh, conference alignment with the OVC. And CSU and Gardner Webb aren't geographic fits for the conference, but their side of things is getting bigger. So I think they committed to a certain time, but how long are they going to want to include two teams all the way down in South and North Carolina when they've got plenty of their own teams? So I appreciate that they're having fun with it. Like I said, to start with the Low Country Boil Bowl at home and end it with the Barbecue Bowl. Food's a big deal in South Carolina, especially Low Country. If you get a chance, if you haven't been here, I mean, there are some really good places, and so food means a lot, and to I think a lot of Charlestonians. And so to kind of incorporate, food themed games, I'm fine with it. I don't really know many people that wouldn't be okay with it.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely agree. Anything to get eyes on the product on the field and I know it'll be a closely contested game between both schools. So I mean, yeah, just want to know your thoughts because I know sometimes I know me in particular, I would not enjoy, I guess, say an Army game being reduced to a gimmick because of something, but I mean, glass half full. If it gets more eyes on the product, then what is there to complain about really? As long as it doesn't take focus away from the student athletes, then it's just it's a great added element. You mentioned the conference alignment with the Big South 2, which a lot of people are talking about the Pac 2. No one's talking about the Big South 2, sadly. I mean, it's just a sad situation. Um, but I want to ask really quick, and I think this will be like our last topic. I want to ask really quick, I guess, like with everything happening with the WAC and ASUN, the United Athletic Conference, whatever, like, do you see, I guess, Charleston Southern and Gardner Webb taking a gamble maybe and joining the ASUN because it seems like the ASUN's FBS aspirations are unrealistic. So I do feel like there's more stability in the ASUN compared to the Big South. But I want to know your thoughts in terms of a future conference home. I know you said the Coastal Athletic Association, which I think is definitely the way to be, especially if another school defects to the Patriot League like Richmond just did. So I just want to know your thoughts on future conference home for Charleston Southern and Gardner Webb.
Yeah, I mean, I would personally, I'd love any other conference just about right now. I mean, it's been tough. Um, I started paying attention to Charleston Southern back in 2012. That's when I first started attending at CSU. And I personally just immediately fell in love with the football program and been a big fan of that. And part of the reason I run the SSN page is to kind of show that and kind of give that to people too, and help increase some social media exposure because there really isn't too much social media exposure for CSU outside of the main site. So um, I care about our athletes, and I want stability for our athletes, and whether that comes in the form of a restructured Big South football, or if it has to be the OVC, that's fine too. I would love to get into the ASUN. I think would be a good fit for us. It would give the ASUN a footprint in on the Atlantic Coast side of things. Really, you call it the Atlantic Sun Conference. You got South Carolina, North Carolina, right there on the Atlantic Coast. So it seems like a no-brainer if you're listening. Any ASUN officials out there? But I care about stability for our athletes and making sure that they have a conference to play in, and whether that comes in the form of the ASUN or the Coastal or dare I say SoCon. I know a lot of people out there would hate that, especially a team 20 minutes down the road. I feel like they would just hate it so much. But um, I want stability. I think our players deserve just as much of an opportunity as any other college football program out there, whether it's FCS or FBS, to have a place to call home, not just your school but your conference too, and for their families too that come to see them. As a CSU fan, um, I'm also a married father of three, so being in a conference like the Big South OVC, there's no chance I'm going to watch our guys play at SEMO or Western Illinois or Eastern Illinois, or I might be able to squeeze in a trip to one of the Tennessee schools. But as someone who's been following and been a fan, it's making it really hard for someone like me to go try and travel to an away game. And it would be nice to be in a conference that's more geographically aligned so I can also go out and enjoy um, my team's play. And it kind of goes back to what I said earlier with bringing fans into games. The same way I'm thinking about not making a trip to Western Illinois. I'm sure Western Illinois fans aren't trying to make a trip all the way down to Charleston for a game that's I think it's 2 in the afternoon. Um, so it's tougher, and I want things to be fair on our athletes because they deserve just as much of an opportunity as any of the other college football programs out there across the country right now. Um, so that's where I'm at. Whether that comes in the form one day of the ASUN or the Coastal Athletic would be cool for me. Or like I said, even a restructured Big South. There's a number of D2 programs within the South that I think could easily make the step up to the FCS and compete right off the bat. I'm thinking of like Valdosta State, and I hate we missed out on programs like West Georgia coming up and going to the ASUN and Queens University. I don't think they sponsor football at Queens University actually, but I know that they joined. They're in the ASUN now too, and that was crazy to me that they joined the ASUN when they're right there in near Charlotte, which is the headquarters of the Big South Conference. And I don't even know how we managed to whiff on that. Um, but there are a number of programs, like I said, here in the South that I think could go a long way towards restructuring Big South football in the future.
Yeah, I agree. And it looks like the OVC Big South arrangement is kind of like what Washington State and Oregon State are doing with Mountain West. It's just to buy more time to restructure the Big South, hopefully because the conference identity, I mean, the conference is thriving from an Olympic sports perspective. There's plenty of members, but for football, it's the only issue really. So I mean, I hope you guys do find a good geographically beneficial home. If it takes, I think the most realistic scenario I think is one of the football only members of the CAA, the Coastal Athletic Association, defects for the Patriot League, whether it be maybe a Villanova or one of the private schools. I don't know how many private schools there are in the Northeast in the CAA, but I would say like Villanova might be dissatisfied with their situation, losing Delaware to Conference USA, now Richmond going. Or even or even William and Mary. Well, William and Mary's a full member of the CAA, so it'd be more difficult. But I think that would probably be like the most realistic. And then CSU and Gardner Webb are more of a package deal, and the CAA is more of a mid-Atlantic, sorry, I guess not mid-Atlantic, but upper South conference. Um, that's for me, that's the most realistic possibility, but who knows with conference realignment, especially with what's happening with the WAC. I mean, the WAC might be desperate, I think, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we definitely. You always got teams like a conference like the MEAC. I know it's an HBCU conference, but they're small enough too. I don't see why CSU or Gardner Webb couldn't squeeze on in there either. So we're not HBCUs, but maybe they'll make an exception.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, last year too, like North Carolina Central, I mean, they got an at-large bid in the playoffs. Like they looked good throughout the year, knocked off a couple CAA schools. So, I mean, it's definitely, I guess, if they're, I mean, contracts can be made out of thin air. I guess if there's some sort of contract that says that Gardner Webb and Charleston Southern can go to the playoffs if they instead of the Celebration Bowl, then that might be the way to go. But we will see.
Yeah. So it'll be an interesting next couple of years. I don't think CSU football's going anywhere. I think it's become too much a part of the school as far as continuing the football program. I think it's become too ingrained with our athletics programs, and but it'll definitely be interesting to see where they kind of go from here over the next few years. If there's another conference that they can get into, and um, outside of seating, I mean, CSU has really done a lot to improve their football facilities. They're just upgraded their athletic performance center, and they've made a lot of cosmetic changes to the program outside of the seating. But you can't tell me seating is an issue for a conference like the CAA when you let Monmouth in, who has 200 more seats than we do, and Campbell again. Smaller programs that are there. Um, so I guess just a matter of you know talking and trying to see what they can figure out. They don't tell me these things. I just kind of gotta do my own research here, but
No, I totally understand it. So yeah, I definitely wish the best for Charleston Southern and of course Gardner Webb. They're a Big South two mate. But Cade, thank you for joining. I think we covered all the topics that we had discussed beforehand. Is there anything else you want to add or slash promote before we sign off?
yeah, anybody that is listening in South Carolina Low Country, if you are looking for a football program to come check out some games, come out to CSU. Our first game's August 31st against the Citadel at home at 6 p.m. Go Bucks.
Yeah, go Bucks indeed. And yeah, of course, like, and that goes for anywhere you are in the country. If there is a FCS or Division two or even Division three program, just a lower, I shouldn't even say lower division. All right, if there is an affordable, smaller program, then go ahead and support it because some of these ticket prices are getting extreme out here in the FBS. So why not support a local program that your money goes further to? So that being said, thank you, Cade, for joining. I really appreciate the time you've given. And until next time, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Peace, love, and soul from the Burger Popper.